This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Jamie Moore here at Manchester. Jamie, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm all right, and you?
Very well, thank you. Here we are, start off with Jack Catterall, his ring return, Arnold Barboza Jr. As I said to him earlier, he's within touching distance of that world title shot once again. How have you found his mentality heading into this fight, simply because he's wanted and he's craved another crack at a world title since the Josh Taylor fight, the first fight that is, and he's just, he's right there. How's his mentality been going into this fight?
Mate, I've always said about him, his mentality is bulletproof. Like, he's never swayed away from it. Even, we was talking about it with him before, actually, even going back to like 2018, when he was mandatory for the WBO title, when Maurice Hooker was champion. Like, he's had so many little setbacks and stuff like that since then. But the vast majority of the time, he'll have a day where he's a bit pissed off, and then the next day he comes in here and he's like, that's it, slept on it, done, let's go. The goal's the same, and that's always the same. The goal's the same, and it's always been world champion. And like, it's not an ideal scenario, but it's an interim title, and if Teofimo doesn't defend against him within 3 months, he gets stripped of it and Jack gets elevated to world champion. It's not how you want to be crowned a world champion, but you know, and I've just said this to somebody else, if I'm Teofimo and I know I'm not going to fight at super lightweight again, I just give it up anyway, you know, and that way we've still got a month now, and obviously they would then elevate the fight to full world champion status. So hopefully that happens in the next month, fingers crossed. Come on, Teo, please, come on, man.
That's what I was going to ask you, Jamie. Obviously, we know Teofimo, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney were all in London on Saturday at the awards. And it seems to be that he'll be doing some type of link-up with those out in Saudi Arabia. So, from your position, are you less so confident, and hearing you talk about him moving up, that provided Jack beats Arnold Barboza, Teofimo won't defend his title against him?
Well, not really. I mean, I know Sam Jones spoke to Teofimo the other night, and he was saying he wasn't sort of adverse to the fight with Jack. So if that's the case, and nothing comes of the conversations what he's having over there, then why not? You know, why not defend the title against him? I'd love that fight for him. I really would. I've said it for years now. For me, Jack's the best 145 on the planet, and he just needs the chance to prove it. And at this moment in time, Teofimo is regarded as the best. So that I would want Jack to fight Teofimo to prove that he's the best. But if he doesn't unfold that way, and he beats Barboza and becomes interim champion and then gets elevated, I don't really care which way it happens for Jack, as long as he becomes world champion.
Let me just get your thoughts, Jamie. Teofimo has obviously been very vocal over social media recently. He had a few outbursts against his own promoter, Bob Arum, and Top Rank. Again, let's say if he was going down that route and you were negotiating with him, very polarising character, depending on what side of the bed he wakes up on, it could be a difficult one to try and negotiate. Yeah,
of course, but you know, I think the politics side of boxing is awful. It's always the worst side, and I keep saying it to the kids. You know, part of the reason why we're here today is because Alfie Middlemiss, Pat Brown, Conor Tusbury, young kids coming through, and over the next couple of years, they'll get frustrated. They'll be like, "Oh, I thought I was going to fight next month, and now it's not the month after." And then I always say to him, I said, "Don't worry about it, because even when you get to the top, you still have these same problems over and over again. Everyone has them all the time. People think that the best in the business don't have these problems. They do. They have it all the time. And Teofimo's no different. And for whatever reason, he's had problems over the years with his promoters. And I hope to God he gets it sorted out for 2 reasons. One, because his talent deserves to be on show and fighting the best fighters in the world at 140 and deciding who's the best. And number 2, it'd be brilliant for Jack to be able to prove himself against someone like Teo.
Before we reach this point, obviously you've got Arnold Barboza Jr. in front of you, Jamie. Arnold Barboza, as Jack said, and as we just discussed, he's a very patient fighter. He's not going to come forwards, be aggressive. Stylistically, people aren't expecting a fan-friendly barn burner. What's the difference between the two of them? What gives Jack the edge?
I just feel like Jack's very adaptable. We've seen it quite a few times now. The first 2 or 3 rounds, they're always they don't catch fire early on. It's as Jack works his opponent's style out and he starts to time him into the shots more. And Barboza's a good fighter. I watched his fight with Sean McComb. I thought Sean just nicked it. I thought it was 6-4 in rounds. But he wasn't, before I saw the fight, I expected something different. I thought it was a whitewash from Sean McComb by what I could read, and it wasn't the case. And he was actually a little bit more. He was a little bit better coming forward than I anticipated what I'd read. So there's obviously going to be problems what we've got to overcome in this fight, but Jack's got the answers. Jack's got every answer. From what I can see, Barboza's a good fighter, but what he's good at, Jack's good at nullifying. And he's the areas where he's weak, Jack's good at, exposing them as well. So I'm looking forward to it, and I've got a feeling like it's going to be one of those standout performances from Jack.
Right, from all things Jack Catterall, Jamie, Pat Brown. Announcement yet, opponent-wise?
No announcement yet, but I think we're close to deciding. Very similar mindset and matchmaking to what we've done with Cameron Vuong, where we're not thinking there's no good getting these opponents where they come in there with that negative mindset where they're not going to win. Pat Brown especially, and Conor Tudsbury, where they're going to be explosive, the aggressive fighters. Put them in there with fighters who are coming to win, and you're going to see fireworks. And believe me, these are two fighters who can really fight. Both carry firepower, but they're both equipped with good skill sets as well. They've been on the Team GB for quite a few years, and you can't not gain a lot of experience with different styles in that. So I'm looking forward for him to get them both going, because the next couple of years are going to be exciting.
Jamie, away from both of them, you mentioned Cameron Vuong, the Vuong-Gwynne rematch. Obviously, on the back of the first fight, there's a lot of talk about it. A lot of boxing's happened since then, so it's somewhat been not necessarily forgotten about, but not in the spotlight as what it was. What's the team's plan? Do you still want to revisit that for the next fight? Are you expecting an interim fight? Or?
The plan was never to revisit it for the next fight. I said I knew it was going to be a hard fight like that, by the way. That was the reason why we picked it. So Cameron's been sparring since then, and we've had conversations about how much he's improved, and a lot of the reasons is because of the experience he picked up in that fight. And I've explained to him, I said, what you need to understand, Cam, is that the reason for putting you through that experience is that now you've got the experience. Once your body and your brain has took those lessons on board, you can't unlearn them. They're there now. They're inbuilt in your DNA. So that was the whole point of it. But we said to Eddie in the ring straight afterwards. He said, "Oh, listen, we need a rematch for that." And I said, 100%, but not straight away, because first of all, he's a young kid starting out in his career, and we'd be neglecting him if we put him back into a difficult fight like that straight away. He needs a couple of fights where the lessons what he got from the fight he gets to implement and put them into practice, and then by the end of the year, then we go back in with Gavin and we show you how much he's improved. There's not going to be enough daylight in between the first fight and the second fight to show improvement, and then I'm happy with that. I'm not going to put him in and put loads of miles on his clock again at this young stage of his career without making sure that he's ready to do it again.
For you then, Jamie, would be the right couple of fights for his development going into a potential rematch with Gavin towards the back end of this year?
Well, what is he now, 7-0? Yeah, I think he's 7-0 now. So what a good idea then is look at his opponents, what he's had up until this point, and compare it to any other prospect in the country who's 7-0. Yeah? And then what I'll say is, I'll tell you what then, a couple of the opponents, what those types of prospects coming through have had in the first 7 fights, we'll get them type of opponents for Cameron. And I bet you any money, everybody starts going, that's ridiculous, you can't put him in with someone like that, because we've been brave enough to match him quite difficult. And then my answer to that would be, why not? So it's okay for everybody else to have easier fights. That kid's had some tough fights in the first part of his career. So give the kid a break, give him a couple of fights where he gets to show everyone why he's one of the best prospects in the country, and then we'll put him back in a more difficult fight. I've no issue with matching the kids hard, just the timing of it's got to be right.
Do you think then, Jamie, from what you're saying in terms of a matching moving forwards with Cameron, it'll be a similar thing with Johnny Fisher looking towards a Dave Allen rematch, that he will go down the route of 1 or 2 other fights before looking at a Dave rematch?
I don't know, I saw Eddie say that he wanted to do it straight away, and then I've heard that Johnny wants a fight in between, which is understandable, and I've said both ways. I said, listen, from our point of view, if they want to go straight back in, of course we would. if they want a fight in between, no problem. I understand it. If I was looking after Johnny, I would say that. But please don't let Dave be stood around hanging about waiting for him. If they're going to box, let them both box on the same bill, and it'll build the rematch up even bigger. But someone's just mentioned it to me there, and I thought it's not a bad idea. That they're talking about Ben Eubank in April on Tottenham's ground. Do it on the undercard to that. It's a massive platform, and the revenue will be there to pay the wages, because it's not going to be a cheap fight now next. And Johnny Fisher, I'll tell you something, he's got some balls. Like, that's one thing. Of course he's going to improve loads from the fight, and he's going to get better as the years go on. But you can't teach that type of heart and determination. So that's one box tick for him. But honestly, Dave's got loads of room for improvement. He turned up 11 weeks before that fight in nowhere near good enough shape as what a professional boxer should be. He knows that. And he's turned up yesterday, and he's in way better shape than he ever has turned up to start a training camp. And he's only about 9 pounds heavier than he weighed for the fight, which is unheard of. So he's now going to go start into a training camp for the next fight in 10 times better position. And I said it loads of times, his ceiling is so much higher than he's ever understood. So yeah, it's exciting times for him. I'm buzzing.
One thing I'm interested to get your thoughts on, Jamie, because we haven't spoken since the fight. I agree with people saying it wasn't a robbery, but the thing that works against that as well is the round seemed to be quite clear to score. So Johnny had the first 4, and then after Dave knocked down Johnny, you could give him probably all of the rounds apart from the 10th I gave to Johnny. So it was relatively easy score. It wasn't like Usyk Fury 2 where there were some swing rounds. It was 50-50 rounds in there. On that note then, again, you can't say it's a robbery, but also the rounds weren't difficult to score.
You see, for me, a robbery is when somebody wins a fight 9-3, for instance, and then it's quite obvious, even if the rounds are bigger or smaller. I've spoke about this 10 points. Why not utilise them more? But there's going to be bigger discrepancies there that sometimes then, because in a 4-rounder, for instance, you can win 1 round big, and then the other person wins the next 3 rounds close but loses the fight. So there's how do you fix this? It's harder to fix than people understand. But in all honesty, when you're scoring a round individually, Johnny Fisher won the first 4. Dave won the next 5. Johnny might have won the last one, but that was a close round. But then Dave's got a knockdown. So you're right in what you're saying. It was an easy fight to score. But if you're scoring it by rounds, like if you can find another round in the 8th or 9th for Johnny Fisher, then it becomes an argument of, well, I thought it was a draw. So hard, it's so difficult. So I think the interpretation at the end of a fight is someone knows who's won a fight. So try and take rounds out of the equation. If it was one 30-minute round, easily people would be giving it to Dave Allen. But you can't. When you're scoring in individual rounds, that's when you get problems. So and it's people's perception of who's won at the end of a fight is where you get mixed up with actually the actual way to score a fight. And I don't know how you fix it.
Jamie, just away from you, Jim, a few other fights I want to get your thoughts on. We've seen a lot of reports about the Haney-Garcia fight will take place at the back end of the year. Obviously, with it being in Jack's weight, what's your thoughts if we do see that rematch run back now?
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I was surprised in the first fight. Not surprised in the sense that I didn't think Garcia could win the fight, but the effect his punches had with Haney, I was really surprised. I don't know whether maybe Haney was caught off guard a little bit, but you've got the controversy about him not making weight and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure if that fight does get made again, they'll have all that stuff wrote in the contracts where they make sure that's all covered. But and then you've got the other side of it about the failed test and stuff like that. So I'm a fellow conspiracy theorist in terms of with Garcia. I'm mad against any form of cheating in boxing. People's lives that are at risk. But I just sensed that there was something not quite right there in the build up to the fight. He was being witch hunted by people saying his mental health wasn't in the right place. And he actually said something in an interview about, if I win this fight, they're going to stitch me up. And I don't know how far we can go with that, but I just get the feeling that something wasn't right. And to answer your question, I'd love to see that fight again. I really would. I feel like Haney can improve on it because he's a clever fighter, so he'll make adjustments. But ultimately, when you punch like Garcia, one fight can change the whole fight. He only has to land once. That's why his output isn't that high, because he can take his time a little bit more, because he knows that he only has to land one rather than 10 to change the whole scope of the fight.
Jamie, obviously you mentioned earlier about the foul test. We saw that with Vuong-Garcia. Obviously Eubank Jr-Benn, he's also been somewhat built now and he's bigger because of what happened with Conor and his foul test. Is it a poor look for the sport that fights being built around that type of thing?
Well, when you look at the facts, Conor's failed a drug test, and at the end of it, it took a long time, and then they've come round and said he's been given the all clear. Now you have to take it on for what the surface of is, what people giving you facts. The facts are he failed, and then he's been cleared. To what extent, I don't know. And there's always going to be questions. It's human nature. You can't go. No one's going to question that now, because, you know, and I understand people are upset by it, saying, well, he's been cleared now. But people are going to question it. It's human nature. Does it leave a bad taste? Yeah, because there should be more scrutiny. But we are where we are. The flip side of that is you're always going to get nostalgia. And Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank, that rivalry, what they had in the 90s, was unmatched as far as I'm concerned. When you get the sons around the same time, you're always going to get this. It's more like an event, because in all honesty, it's a fight which is taking place on the biggest stage, and 99.9% of the time that happens when two of the best fighters in the world, regardless of what weight, have been world champions. They've achieved loads at the highest end of the sport, and then they match with each other, and then it's a stadium fight. This is a totally different scenario. So this isn't two ex-world champions at two different weights fighting each other. This is two good fighters with massive profiles who are in a position where they're going to earn absolute millions, because it's an occasion. And do you know what? I take my hat off to them, because this is the hardest sport to earn money in the world. And if you know, I've just done a different interview over there talking about misfits. Are you for it or against it? And I said, I've not really got an opinion on it, except that it's boxing taking place outside of professional boxing rules. So if you're going to earn money from it, then fair play. But you've got to understand it's not professional boxing. So don't get the two mixed up. So if I go to Old Trafford and watch Soccer Aid and Robbie Williams scores, I can't sit there and go, this is a fucking joke, this. He's not a professional footballer. I know he's not, because I've paid a fucking ticket to watch Soccer Aid, not Man United. So don't get the two mixed up. It's not professional boxing. It's boxing taking place on a different platform, because it's different. So by the same rule, I don't feel like it's an event. It's not two elite level world fighters fighting in a stadium. It's two people who've got massive profiles, but these two are professional boxers, and they're fighting each other and they're getting paid millions for it. So if they can get it, then why not?
Just quickly, Jay, because obviously Adam started punching now, so I imagine you're going to start training with the lads in a minute. Beterbiev-Bivol too. What's your take?
I feel like at that level, when there's a fine line between winning and losing, it's going to be a very similar fight. They're both going to come pretty much the same, and it'll be the same type of fight, and it'll be as close as it was last time, but I feel like Bivol will nick it this time.
Dubois versus Parker as well on that undercard. Which way are you leaning?
I just feel like my heart's telling me that Parker's gonna win. My head is saying to me that Dubois he's still getting better, and he punches like a mule, and at some point he's going to get to Parker. But that Rocky type story in my mind is saying I want Parker to. He's having that Cinderella Man story at the minute where he's come full circle, and he's at the back end of his career. He's got his best form, and I wouldn't be surprised if he beats him. But I just feel like Dubois is really improving at the moment.
Last one in Manchester next month, Derek Chisora's last dance against Otto Wallin. Not the fight people expected. It's an awkward style matchup. From what I said, in England it's meant to be his last one.
Okay. Yeah, it's not an easy style, but I don't think when has Derek Chisora ever took an easy fight? In all honesty, he's a war horse, and I take my hat off to him. Do I feel like he should have walked away ages ago? Yeah, but who am I to tell someone what to do with a career? But I want to be there, to be honest. Like Derek Chisora, he's been one of the biggest characters on the British scene for the last 15 years, and if he's getting his best type of paydays at this stage of his career, then fair play to him. Good luck to him.
Jamie, I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Dan.
Perfect. Cheers, Jamie.